Well, it's always nice to have some competitive spirit in here, and both of these guys, they've been around the block a lot, so I'm sure there isn't actual bad blood, but it's always nice to get back at the guy that knocked you out of the Pro
Absolutely.
Tour. So Hawley has finished shuffling his deck. He has presented. Eleyet's giving it a couple more mashes, and then he's going to go on. So let's go back to talking a little bit about what Hawley is going to want from his opening hand.
Well, what I can make sure he can do is interact with Bryan's early plays. He has some mana accelerants, but as far as actual ways, if Bryan has the capability of turn 2 kills in his deck, Eleyet has the capability of turn 2 kills in his deck, and there aren't that many ways that Hawley interacts with that. He does have 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Force of Will in the main, and he has 1 Gaddock Teague in the main, and I think those are the key things that at least on the first couple turns he can do to interact.
Yeah, so I think almost any hand with a Force of Will, a blue card, and some lands is going to be something that Hawley is going to want to keep.
Right, he doesn't really have the luxury of waiting for something better than that. A lot, his deck there are a lot of dead cards in his deck game 1.
Yeah. If he doesn't have a counter spell, though, I think what he's really looking for is Accelerant into Green Sun Zenith for Gaddock Teague, and hope that Eleyet doesn't have the show and tell.
Right. So if Hawley does land a Gaddock Teague, what can Eleyet do in response?
So Eleyet can still go and find the show and tells. He has Force of Wills that he can use to try it. Stop that, and he does have an intuition package, so he does have the ability to, he has a lot of tutors.
He can intuition for show and tell, yeah. So he can still show and tell to get under the Gaddock Teague.
Yeah. One other thing that Eleyet needs to be aware of in this matchup is his plan B is to show and tell an Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, into play.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty tough. That's not going to be a very reliable plan in this matchup due to the fact of 4 Knight of the Reliquaries and a Caracas in Bryan Hawley's deck.
Yeah, so the sort of typical interaction there is if you show and tell, put in an Emrakul, and your opponent puts in a Knight of the Reliquary, they're going to get to untap the Knight of the Reliquary is no longer be something sick, and they're going to be able to get a Caracas, bounce the Emrakul back to your hand.
Absolutely.
So not a very reliable plan B. That may be something that Bryan considers siding out for game 2.
So both players going to 6 right now. Yeah, both players going to 6. I don't think that really favors one deck or the other particularly.
Probably not. I mean, Hawley is more likely to mulligan his 7 because there are so few hands that really interact with Eleyet. So I think he has to be happy when he's mulliganing that Eleyet is also mulliganing and that he's not at a significant disadvantage. But at 6-card hands, they're about the same as 7-card hands facing each other. It's really just one person being down is at a disadvantage.
Right.
So Hawley has shuffled, has presented, and Eleyet finishes up, passes his deck back, and we're going to go ahead and shuffle up and see if our 6-card hands are acceptable or if we're going to 5.
So, at least in game 1, because of the fact that we know both Eleyet's aware of the Gaddock Teague planet, how much do you think that's going to affect his mulliganing decisions? He has that, his original plan is, oftentimes he hard casts the Hive Mind, but he knows that it's not entirely likely that will work.
Yeah, I don't, reasonable hands with a Hive Mind, I don't think you can mulligan. Like, if you have a turn 3 Hive Mind, even if it doesn't have a show and tell,
right.
That seems like
what it might do is when he brainstorms, we may see him bury cards like Grim Monolith more readily.
Yeah, absolutely. And he may be more inclined to keep Force of Will hands. It looks like Eleyet has kept his hand, and Hawley seems disappointed with his hand and is trying to convince himself whether or not he can keep.
But 1 card face down is it's not really. I think that when he put it face down to look at it, I believe it was a Swords to Plowshares. He was kind of looking at himself and saying, this is already a 5-card hand.
Yeah, this is a 5-card hand. This is 4-card. He's got 2 Swords to Plowshares in his hand. That's pretty rough.
So he's going to mulligan to 5. That was essentially already a 4-card hand.
Yeah, and this really does hurt Hawley's chances of stealing game 1. Because one of the plans that he has is this Green Sun Zenith plan. That plan takes a bunch of cards to do.
It takes 3 mana sources and a Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, and ideally, one of those is a Noble Hierarch 2 Grandson Zeniths and 2 lands so that you can accelerate into a Dryad Arbor. And so there's less chance with a 5-card hand that he's going to be able to put together the necessary cards.
Yeah, there's always the possibility that he naturally draws the Gaddock Teeg, in which case he can do it with 1 fewer card.
Absolutely.
Deals out 6, corrects himself, he's on 5.
Alright. Hawley accepts his fate and chooses to keep. We see, looks like a Noble Hierarch, the Sylvan Safekeeper, another Noble Hierarch, land in a Umezawa's Jite?
Yeah, not exactly an ideal hand. It has no disruption. What the hand does have going for it is if Eleyet has kept maybe, Eleyet was on 6. He kept a hand that maybe subpar. If Eleyet has a hand that maybe has the combo but no mana sources, and he bricks on lands for a couple turns, or in some way, kept something with one half of the combo, not the other, and bricks for a bit, then Hawley presents a pretty good clock here. So he could punish a stumble, but that's probably all the game he has right on this draw.
Yeah, it looks like Eleyet did keep a hand that doesn't have the combo and instead just has a number of cantrips. He has double Force of Will, Emrakul, a single island, and double Ponder. And when he ponders, he sees a Soul Ring land. I believe it's an Ancient Tomb that taps for 2, a Pact of Negation, and I think another cantrip.
Yeah, so he's more looking for a show and tell right now. The Pact of Negation is okay here. He's going to keep it, and he's going to keep it to ponder and to ponder. He's not thinking this match is going to go particularly fast as a result. He's being greedy by taking a ponder into ponder hand.
Yeah, well, he probably does want the Pact of Negation so that he opens up Hive Mind as an option. And ponder into ponder is, pretty much the same thing as a shuffle and draw. So we're going to see...
Right, the only thing it costs him is time, which he feels like he has plenty of right now.
So we're going to see the ponder before playing a land.
And there's a show and tell. So he actually can make a show and tell, putting Gristleband into play with Force of Will backup. We may see him do it right now. Once again, he is worried. He has every right to be worried that if Hawley has a Knight of the Reliquary, that will no longer work. But
yeah, and it's so hard to put Bryan on a 5-card hand on having exactly Knight of the Reliquary. That said, though, Bryan, Eleyet is far enough ahead that he can consider taking his time here.
Yeah.
He has another ponder. He's going to be able to shuffle if he wants.
I think he'll be safe to go for it because Hawley had the Noble Hierarch. Eleyet, if Hawley doesn't make a Knight of the Reliquary turn 2, Eleyet can assume reasonably that Hawley does not have a Knight of the Reliquary. There's are few plays that Hawley would prefer to do than make a turn 2 Knight.
So taking the show and tell here and then being able to wait for Hawley to see what he does. And you see that Eleyet doesn't play the Ancient Tomb from his hand. He doesn't
want it to get wastelanded.
Turn off Wasteland as an out.
And we see a second Noble Hierarch from Hawley. And he has a Scavenging Ooze, Umezawa's Jite, and Sylvan Safekeeper.
Yeah. And it looks like he's going to cast... So he's going to cast one of the creatures. Getting in for 2 damage here, but at the cost of having a smaller creature.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a swing with a 0-power creature this turn costs you, that you're not swinging with the 2/2, but when you're getting another creature in play, you will get that damage back by your attack next turn.
So if you attack over the course of 4 turns, well, actually, so he'll simply be able to cast a Scavenging Ooze next turn, or actually the Umezawa's Jite is probably the best bet next turn.
Alright, so Eleyet's hand, 2 Force of Wills, a Pact of Negation, almost too much counter magic. He has a Ponder, a Show and Tell, and an Emrakul. The coast is clear if he goes for it.
He's going to get it.
Alright,
it looks like he's going to do so.
Show and Tell. Reason, you say no Knight, please.
Yeah. So we're going to see, presumably, Umezawa's Jite. No, it's going to be the Scavenging Ooze.
Alright, and Emrakul.
Emrakul,
Bryan needs to
better.
top deck a Caracas.
Yep. The Knight of the Reliquary no longer an out. It would be summoning sick. And we see Bryan
to be
get
fair,
a Brainstorm.
if he makes Knight of the Reliquary here... Oh, that was...
So Eleyet Force Will the Brainstorm because he knew that Caracas was an out and he wanted to prevent it. It was a very heads-up play by Eleyet there.
I mean, he could have also, well, he could have waited to force the will the Knight of the Reliquary as well. But okay, sorry, no, because Caracas isn't out. Yeah.
Caracas isn't out. It is I believe, one out in the entire deck.
Right, so it's a little bit of a one-outer,
but that's the percentage point that Eleyet's going to be able to pick up. So we're going to come back to the booth because we have another round of trivia here.
So this one is for 6 months of free Star City Premium. We have another trivia question. Why don't we go ahead and do it?
Yeah. So at GP Miami, which is going to be run by StarCityGames.com on June 28th, 29th, and 30th, we're going to be unveiling and distributing 5 new tokens that are modeled on some of our writers. One of those writers is Sam Black, famous for building the Aristocrats deck that won the most recent Pro Tour, but also developing a Zombies deck for Legacy that uses Gravecrawler. So his token has a particular creature type. Go ahead and tweet us the creature type of the token for Sam Black that's going to be distributed at GP Miami, and you will be in the running for 6 months of StarCityGames.com.
So one of the things, there are 5 new tokens printed for Star City for the Grand Prix Miami. This is one of the tokens. So if you go to the website for Grand Prix Miami, you'll be able to see the pictures of all 5 of them that you would receive by going to Grand Prix.
Yep, and that website is magicgp.com. It also has all the information about the GP, when it's running, what hotel accommodations are available, and all of the free giveaways that StarCityGames.com is doing that weekend.
Right, going back to our match, so Bryan Hawley, losing the first game, is going to have to recover in the second game here. He was on a 5-card hand, so his deck really didn't get to perform how it wanted to. He didn't have any disruptive spells that game.
That's very true, and like we talked about before, his deck gets a lot better in this matchup post-board. He gets to bring in 2 Negate, 2 Flusterstorm, 1 Force of Will, 1 Spell Pierce, and a lot of these counters are particularly good in this matchup. The Flusterstorm and the Spell Pierces are very good in this matchup because you can use them to counter your copies of the pack spells. So you don't have to fight if you have those in your hand, you don't have to fight over the Show and Tell or the Hive Mind.
Right. So instead it's like Emrakul becomes the card that you end up losing to.
Yeah, and we know already that the Show and Tell for Emrakul is something that is fraught with danger for Bryan Eleyet.
So interestingly, Bryan, Hawley can set up a situation where Eleyet's kind of as you said, Eleyet's combo may not actually combo. If Hawley can get aboard with a Knight of the Reliquary and a counter spell in hand, it's possible you can just really survive the combo.
Yep. So Eleyet, again, we've talked a few times about how you don't want to over-sideboard in these combo decks. Your combo tends to take up a fair amount of the deck. You already have a lot of disruption in there. So he's not going to bring in a ton of cards, but as we talked about before, I think the 3 fire spouts that he has in his sideboard are really for this particular matchup. And so he's gonna want them to slow down Hawley and also be able to deal with Gadok.
On the other side of our bracket, we have David Dobert in our 1 seed with his Dark Maverick deck, up 1 game on Chris Morris-Lent's Merfolk deck.
And that's kind of what we expected with these 2 decks, because the Merfolk deck isn't going to be able to island walk over his opponent. He has to fight sort of a fair fight, and when Knight of the Reliquary is involved, the fights aren't always that fair.
It tends to be the biggest creature on the board.
Yeah. That said, if Chris Morris-Lent manages to get past Dark Maverick, he's probably going to have a pretty decent matchup in the finals with 2 blue decks.
Merfolk tends to be great against any other deck packing islands, which both these players are. We have Hawley keeping a 7-card hand and Eleyet going to 6 this time. So
yeah, the shoe is potentially on the other foot. Hawley's going to be up at least 1 card on Eleyet here, and this is definitely the post-board matches that are going to be a harder road for Eleyet to go up.
Well, as we saw last game, Bryan Eleyet's deck doesn't particularly need all 7 cards to play. That last time he had, at the end of the game, he had 2. He had a Force of Will, a Force of Will, Pact Negation. He ended up forcing, but he didn't even really need to be doing that. He had a lot of cards. The only cards he used that game were Island, Ancient Tomb, Ponder, Show and Tell, Emrakul. He only actually used 5 cards over the course of the entire game.
Yep. And a lot of Bryan's deck, of Eleyet's deck, is cantrips. He has the 4 Brainstorm, the 4 Ponder, and 3 Gataxian Probe. So he certainly is able to do a lot of selection to find the cards that he needs, even if they're not in his opening hand.
Right, so Bryan on a 6-card hand here keeps it fairly readily. And so we say turn 1, fetch land into Noble Hierarch from Hawley.
Yeah. I think I saw a Force of Will flash in Hawley's hand, but as we get closer, we'll be able to make better observations.
Yep, Eleyet has kept a Hive Mind heavy handy. He's drawn Pact of the Titan. It looks like he has a pair of Hive Minds in his hand.
He does. He has at least one other blue card and a Flooded Strand in his hand. So
on his turn, yep. Hawley has Kasali Pride Mage, blue Force of Will plus blue spell. I believe it's Force of Will plus Brainstorm. He's going to make a Kasali Pride Mage this turn, leaving up Wasteland.
Yeah. So Kasali Pride Mage, it's basically, a 2/2 with Exalted in this matchup. Sometimes it's able to kill a Grim Monolith, but its ability actually is not relevant once the Hive Mind comes down.
Hawley has kept in Sylvan Safekeeper in this matchup. You'd say that's probably for lack of better things to sideboard out. It tends to just be a 1/1 in the matchup.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that he kept it in. He has so many cards that he's going to want to bring in. And the only really obvious thing that he's going to sideboard out is the 4 Swords to Plowshares.
Great. So turn 2, Eleyet makes a Flooded Strand,
and he draws the Grim Monolith for the turn, turning on the Kasali Pride Mage. And I think he's pondering here whether or not he wants to try to kill the Kasali Pride Mage.
He's opted not to.
Yeah. So the last card that he had in his opening hand was a Show and Tell. So he had sort of the Acceleration and the Hive Mind, and then he immediately drew the Pact.
So by doing that, is it fair to say he is waiting to try to get Bryan Hawley to tap out? If he does, it looks like Eleyet can untap and win the game.
That's certainly a possibility. Maybe trying to lull him into a false sense of security.
Right. But he obviously can't do it through the Force of Will, but he's not positive that Hawley has a Force of Will.
But Eleyet knows that Hawley has 4 forces post-board, so it's something that he should at least be considering playing around.
Well,
he doesn't have to.
And that's one thing that talked a little bit about this, where you, especially in a top 4 of a large event, you want to assume a certain level of play skill appropriate to your opponent. He's played Hawley in a PTQ finals. He knows Hawley's a good player.
Absolutely.
So you'd say, I'm pretty sure Hawley didn't just keep a hand of Noble Hierarch into Kasali Pride Mage on 7. There's got to be a piece of disruption in his hand, and I would say Force of Will is the most likely candidate.
So Bryan plays the Grim Monolith, and at this point, I think he's trying to bait out the Kasali Pride
He
Mage.
passes turn on end step. Hawley's going to Vendilion click Bryan Eleyet. One of the things I like about how Hawley played this is that he's making the end step Vendilion click as opposed to the draw phase Vendilion click.
Absolutely. He knows that Eleyet operates at sorcery speed, and that he's going to be able to do this safely and represent other spells. And this is a tremendous leg up for Hawley in this match, because now he knows exactly what he has to play around. At this point, he could choose to ship the Show and Tell, but he could also choose not to and just say, you know what, you don't have ways to stop my Force of Will. I've got good disruption for you. I'm gonna use the Kasali Pride Mage to destroy your Grim Monolith and let you just sort of sit there and spin your wheels.
Yeah, the biggest worry, I think, for Hawley in his hand is that Eleyet has a lot of ways to start hard casting Hive Minds. Say if Elliot's top card of the deck is a City of Traders, then he's gonna have to worry about, his turn Show and Tell. Okay, no Show and Tell. Hive Mind. Okay, no, he'll actually have 3 must counter spells, which Hawley can't deal with. So what he's instead opted to do is, instead of fight the war over Show and Tells and Hive Minds, he's taking the Pact of the Titan and making it actually so that trying to just ruin Elliot's way to actually win the game.
Well, and so you have to keep in mind though that Hawley has Eleyet on a 3-turn clock. He's going to attack for 6 damage here. Then he's going to be able.
If he uses Dryad Arbor, for 6.
If he attacks with Dryad Arbor, he's going to be able to attack for 6 damage. Then he's going to be able to destroy the Grim Monolith. And because Eleyet was playing around Wasteland and didn't play the Ancient Tomb, Eleyet's not going to be able to hard cast the Hive Mind this next turn.
Yeah.
So Hawley gets another attack, and then he just has, he has the Force of Will and the
So here,
Brainstorm.
Hawley, it sounds like you're saying he should be playing on the land destruction, on the mana destruction part.
I think,
Blow up Grim Monolith, blow up Ancient Tomb.
Yeah, blow up
Counter
those two.
Counter Force of Will, Show and Tell, and hope that Bryan can't find a way to 6 in time.
And give Eleyet as few outs to getting 2 counterspells, or getting a counterspell, and the mana that he needs in order to get past your Force of Will.
Yeah, I mean, what I see with Hawley is why I think he makes this play, or has played it by taking the Pact of the Titan, is that right now with the hand he has, all it takes for Bryan to win the game, would be finding a Force of Will, because then you'd be able to have, Force of Will, pitching high, cast Show and Tell with Force of Will, pitching Hive Mind back up, and Pact of the Titan in his hand. And it looks like actually Bryan Eleyet has found all of the above.
Wow. The best brainstorm ever?
Yeah, well, he does have Pact of the Titan, Force of Will, Blue Spell, Show and Tell. Now, he's not opting to... This is, yeah, so I think he's going to go for it this turn, yeah. All right,
Here's the Hive Mind, I've got this backup.
An excellent brainstorm, yep. Counter Will for Hawley.
This is what you'd expect.
And Hawley's got to be pretty disappointed that the remaining 3 cards in his hand. He can't pay for both packs, so
he can
that should
pay
get
for
the game. Bryan Eleyet wins 2 games to 0 over Bryan Hawley. A really, Hawley with the Vendilion Click, unfortunately drawing Bryan, basically, taking Pact of the Titan, drawing Bryan right into another Pact of the Titan.
Yeah, I'd like to actually go back at some point and rewatch that and see exactly what the draws were, and see if the other line makes more sense. It's possible that Hawley thought it all out and
taking the Show and Tell, or you mean taking
the Show and Tell, or just leaving him with the cards there, and not giving Eleyet redraws.
Yeah, it does look like, because